What is up? Welcome to the docket presented by Defense Diaries, where we give you just facts. I am your host, Bob Mata. No Allie tonight. She's taking Scout for a haircut, or a hairstyle. Maybe it's a hairstyle. So, welcome. Gave you no notice. I like to do that because it's fun, and I like to keep you on your toes. It's important to keep you on your toes. You know, you're not really paying attention, and then boop, I'm ready to go live. All right. So, unless you've been hiding under a rock, you're probably aware that the case that never sleeps, Delphi, has more news today. Interesting news. Interesting news. To me, not shocking at all. If you were paying attention to Scremin and Lebrdo's last move before the Supreme Court reinstated Baldwin and Rosie, they had filed their motion to have Rick moved for safekeeping. And in that, they had adopted both prior counsel's previous motion to have him moved from Westville. And they also found that the memo that people love to hate, which I love, but people love to hate, had merit. So Barbara McDonald, a friend of the show, she came on early. She may be she was our first guest actually with Allie and I when we started the channel. You'll have to go check out that interview. We thought that was pretty great. So she was able to score a great interview with former counsel William Lebrdo, and that is airing tonight on Vinny's show on CourtTV, Closing Arguments. I don't know exactly what time. I would just start watching Vinny from probably the beginning. I tried to get on. I called Marina. I'm like, the booking agent and the producer. I'm like, hey, I want to be on. I want to like really horn my way in with Barb's great interview. And I was denied, sadly. But I'm excited to watch it. I'm glad that Barbara was able to sit down with them because it's interesting. Now, what I want to do tonight, this is not going to be a 2.5 hour live. I'm telling you that right now. So some of you are probably applauding violently. Thank God. And some of you might be a little bit bummed. We're just going to go through this. I want to be off before Vinny's show starts. But again, if you're unaware of what's going on today, because if you have a real job and you're not sitting on Twitter or online like I am all day or writing and, whatever I'm doing, essentially what happened is Barb McDonald, who's a senior writer for CourtTV, was able to wrangle an interview with Richard Allen's former counsel, not Baldwin and Rosie, because they've been reinstated to the case, but William Lebrdo, who I was tough on, not because of his lawyering at all. I was tough on him in terms of the appointment because of what appeared to me to be a pretty cozy relationship with a judge that he has practiced in front of for 20 plus years. And that scared me. It had nothing to do with his ability to practice law at all. It had everything to do with, I didn't want a home-picked lawyer of gulls to be handling this matter. It scared me. And that was it. That was basically where I laid with that thing. And I made that pretty clear. I didn't feel that Scremin, and I'm sure he had been in front of Gull, but I don't think, because he's not the public defender of Allen County as Lebrdo is, I don't think it was anywhere near the frequency that Lebrdo was in Gull's courtroom. And I just know from practicing, like I'm in front of the same judges all the time, and relationships are formed, and I'm not saying that they're inappropriate in any way, shape, or form. However, relationships are formed, I mean, there's a certain level of trust in between probably judges and attorneys. Judges that have an attorney in front of them a lot can earn a certain level of respect, may give deference, and vice versa. So it just the whole thing made me uncomfortable. So, I was relieved, to be honest with you. And I told you, and I think that we're going to watch the kind of the teaser for the full interview tonight, which I recommend everybody watch. It's going to be fascinating. But I want to read through, because as I said, Barbara is a senior writer. So that what accompanies, and Julie Grant a friend of mine, and I'm on her show a lot, opening arguments. She's the one who kind of ran this morning, and so she had Barbara on. They were talking. I'm going to play some of that, and I'm also going to play, obviously, the interview, the clips, the little bits that they gave us of Lebrdo, in the hopes that everybody will go over to Court TV tonight to watch it. I think it'll make for some pretty interesting TV, and it'll obviously create a lot of conversation points for all of us. No matter which side of this you're on, I obviously felt vindicated. I've been preaching for a long, long time, that Baldwin and Rosie weren't lying about the things that they had in the memo. Of course, everything is interpretation in terms of how they're interpreting the evidence, but the concept that they were lying and making up the Odin thing and doing that just to create a smoke screen was absurd. That's not how attorneys work. That's not what they do. There's ramifications if you're filing completely false and unvalidated filings, court filings. It's not done. And it was hard to try to get people to understand that and believe that. And I find it ironic that people now seem to give credence to what Baldwin and Rosie were saying, because quite simply, one of Gull's hand-picked lawyers now is agreeing with them. So now they're believable. I find that irritating, to be honest with you. I think that everybody should have felt that way from the beginning, especially because like I have no horse in the race. I'm not representing Rick Allen. I am not on the payroll with Baldwin and Rosie. I don't work with them. I am like, that's not my thing. I am a defense bar lawyer, and I feel that Richard Allen has been getting railroaded. Now, whether that without regard to guilt or innocence, I'm talking about the process leading up to his trial. I feel like he's getting railroaded. That's the way I've felt, and I've been screaming about it from the rooftops now for months, and nothing is going to change that. And certainly this interview that we're going to go through certainly isn't going to change that either. So let's start by checking out what Barb had to say in terms of her article that accompanied the clips with Julie. All right, so as I said, Barb's the author of this, and this can be found at CourtTV.com's website. Give full faith and credit to those guys. So I'm just going to read through it, and I feel like I can do it because Allison's not here to yell at me about reading. All right, so as the Indiana Supreme Court heard oral arguments for and against reinstating Richard Allen's original defense team, Allen's then lead defense attorney, Bill Lebrdo, sat in the courtroom texting Allen's wife, Kathy. Quote, "When I found out that the other attorneys were reinstated, I let her know right away." He tells me by phone the day after the Supreme Court hearing, and a swift ruling on January 18th. As you all remember, that happened in one day. It was oral arguments. By 3:30, 4 o'clock that afternoon, we already had the order reinstating Baldwin and Rosie. She really wanted to be there. I wasn't completely surprised by yesterday. I didn't really like the way that it happened, he says, end quote. Lebrdo, like the general public, had to apply for a ticket to be let in to the hearing in the courtroom inside of Indiana State Capitol. He says the tickets given to the Indiana Public Defender Council, which he's a member of, were given away to other attorneys. Might be talking about me. Okay, so me. Oh, so the court's decision came less than 4 hours after the hearing wrapped. Me being Barbara, obviously. Can you share with me how Kathy responded to the court's ruling? Lebrdo, quote, "She didn't comment about the other attorneys being reinstated. She just expressed her gratitude to me, Robert, and Susie," end quote. Lebrdo is referring to co-counsel Robert Scremin and investigator Susie Moeller. Me, Barbara, did you ever talk with Richard Allen about his desire to reinstate Bradley, Rosie, and Andrew Baldwin? Lebrdo, we never really addressed who he wanted as his lawyers, nor did he ever say, "I don't want you guys, I want my old lawyers," nor did he ever say, "I don't want my old lawyers, I want you guys." I know that was probably Mr. Allen's wishes on October 11th, but I can't say that that remained the same up until yesterday. All right, so this This portion obviously appears to be taking place right after the hearing. Okay, so I don't know. I actually text Barbara because I was curious about whether or not uh, Lebrdo had gotten clearance from Gull, because he's still under a gag as far as I'm concerned, and unless he gets approval from Gull. And Barbara told me that he ran it by Gull, and Gull was okay with him making the statement. So, which is a little surprising, but maybe not as surprising when we get to what he says towards the end about Gull staying on the trial. I don't know. Maybe like it's not even conspiracy. It's just food for thought type stuff. We just need to kind of think about, he's coming out making a statement. Theoretically, he's still under a gag. He goes to Gull. Gull says, fine, go make your thing, make your statement. And then, he does. He says some things that are very helpful to Richard Allen and his current defense team in terms of their theory of the case. And then, he's going to proceed to say that, the only way that he thinks that Allen can get a fair trial is if Judge Gull stays on the case. So it's like, does that destroy his credibility in terms of what he's saying? I don't know. It's interesting though. Let's keep going through this. So Lebrdo, we never really addressed who he wanted as lawyers. Okay, wait, I think I already said that. Okay. So I'm going to assume that all took place either the day of or the day after the hearings, like this phone conversation. Okay, so Lebrdo is referencing a typed letter dated October 11th, 2023, given to Special Judge Fran Gull. It was signed by Richard Allen and urged Gull not to take action against his appointed public defenders, Rosie and Baldwin. The attorneys had been notified by Gull the day before to stop working on the case after the leak of sensitive crime scene photos, and a hearing was then set for October 19th in Gull's Allen County courtroom. Not really. We all know that a hearing really wasn't set. It was a court date was set, but it wasn't really a hearing. No one really knew what it was for. So I'm going to take a little bit of umbrage with that. A contentious debate in Gull's chambers hours before that hearing ended with Rosie and Baldwin off the case and set up a legal battle that ended in the Supreme Court. Quote, he didn't write the letter. Mr. Rosie prepared the letter and had Mr. Allen sign it. It's my understanding it was typed, and I'm assuming Mr. Allen doesn't have access to a computer or a typewriter in the Department of Corrections. Right? I don't know how many times I've said that. I've heard various people saying, well, clearly Richard Allen didn't write. Yeah, well, no shit. The guy's in SAG 23 hours a day. He definitely doesn't have access to a computer, but it's not at all unusual for an attorney to prepare the affidavit based on their conversations with their private investigators and conversations with the witness. They then type it out. They then provide it to the witness. The witness reviews it. If it's completely accurate and truthful, they then sign it. There's nothing weird or untoward about it. It's done all the time. And typically it's notarized. Okay. Okay, so Rosie and Baldwin previously asserted in court filings that Allen's mental and physical condition had deteriorated after his arrest because of what they called his inhumane treatment in a maximum security prison as he awaits trial. Quote, his mental health and physical health has improved from the very first time that I saw him, October 31st of 2023. At that point, he looked extremely thin, pale. He just didn't look good. He has gotten better, which is I'm thankful about, Lebrdo says. Allen weighed 206 206 pounds at his arrest, and he dropped down to 122 pounds at his lowest. That's shocking. Even if it's him on hunger strikes, that's a lot of weight to lose in a year. In a motion filed earlier this month to transfer Allen out of prison and house him in a county jail where most pretrial defendants are held, Lebrdo's team asserted that Rosie and Baldwin's Odinist theory of the crime had merit. Ooh, ding, ding. In Odin we trust. Oh, Barbara. Rosie and Baldwin previously asserted in court filings that a group of white nationalist Odinists more likely killed Abigail Williams and Liberty German, and that law enforcement failed to follow up on potential Odinist suspects. Honestly, when I first heard about it, and I thought that these attorneys were going down this road, Lebrado said, quote, I thought it was hocus pocus, which thank you to Mandy for putting together our fantastic thumbnail, which hopefully you guys saw. That was the genesis of the hocus pocus. That's where that came from on our thumbnail. If you were wondering, I thought it was hocus pocus. I was wrong. Wow. I was 100% wrong. I wish that would have been in bold too. This is a real thing, and it's a dangerous thing. I mean, it's a big statement. I mean, it doesn't surprise me because as I've been telling you guys and anybody who will listen or chooses to listen or believe is more, I suppose, the more appropriate response that I'm looking for, that you believe me when I tell you, and instead of just thinking that I'm just trying to push some weird narrative. When attorneys, I'm going to say it one last time, when attorneys are going through the discovery and they're telling you that it's coming from the discovery that they've received from the state, you can pretty much be assured that it's truthful. Now, are they going to put their slant on it? Of course they are. And we saw that with the one thing that I did not like about the memo was when they put the whole thing on how it was impossible for Rick Allen to have done it by himself. Super graphic, super long, super unnecessary in my estimation. Like, that was the one thing that I felt that shouldn't have been in there. But in terms of the facts, in terms of the descriptions of what the crime scene photos look like and what they portrayed, those are going to be accurate. You can't just make up lies and pleadings. Like, there's a ramification of that, and it's like them saying that they didn't find anything on Rick's electronics, and then that was supported by the fact that they included the depositions of Holman and Liggett, where they confirmed that they found nothing on any of his electronics linking him to either of the girls or to him searching online to figure out how can I stage a scene to make it look like Odinist did this. I mean, like, he's not going to intuit it. He would have had to have looked it up somewhere. Maybe he's that guy who goes to the public library. Maybe they should go to the public library in Delphi if they have one. I'm not sure. And check the computer. They probably have one or two terminals over there. Maybe Rick Allen was over there all the time, like searching all the Odinist stuff so that he knew how to make it, and like printing out a piece of paper and then folding it in his pocket and hiding it from Kathy. And then when the big day came, the big nightmarish day, I mean, like, you just have to think about things commonsensically to see if they work, instead of just believing everything that law enforcement and the state is telling you all the time. Be critical, critically think about things. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, most of the time law enforcement gets it right. They do. I'll be the first one to say it. Most of the time they get it right. And sometimes they don't. All right. So Lebrdo says Allen has no ties to Odinism, confirming what Baldwin and Rosie said in the memo. They searched all of his social media accounts, his computers, his phone. He has no ties to this cult whatsoever that they can establish, Lebrdo said. Lebrdo, who was Allen's lead defense attorney for 79 days, admits that he hasn't been through all the discovery in the case, but says he too saw evidence of Odinist prison guards in charge of Allen at the Westville Correctional Facility. We all know this. This was confirmed. Like there were affidavits. We got an affidavit from the warden who admitted that his guards were wearing patches. So like this can't be in question anymore, right? Like, no one's questioning that part of it, right? And it doesn't have to be a conspiracy. Like as I sit here today, my thought isn't that if in fact a group of individuals were responsible for the crimes against Abby and Libby, are somehow in cahoots with a group of individuals at Westville Prison who happen to share the same affinity for Vikings and Norse paganism, and they've somehow come to some kind of agreement that, yes, we've committed this crime. Now we need you to get him to confess, which they did, right? That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that this religion or this Odin type idolatry that seems to be pretty popular in Indiana. I mean, I don't know how much things people need to see online in order for them to come to the understanding that they seem to dig Odinism or Odin. Like, I mean, there's a tattoo shop in Delphi proper that's got, I think, Odin in the name. Sure, Sleuthy's in here. She'll tell you what it is. I mean, like, this isn't like some like flight of fancy. Like, it's certainly something that is going on, probably not just in Indiana, but like all over rural America, all over the Midwest. So and so it's two separate things where it could have been this group of individuals, whether they're white supremacist, whether they're straight Otis. Like, I tend to agree that I don't think that this was an actual ritual sacrifice. That doesn't mean that somebody, if they had another motive to end their lives and then they practice this in some kind of form, that they wouldn't say, okay, well, now that we've done this, it was a very violent act. Let's try to make it right by putting whatever runes we feel like kind of make this okay with Odin. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to be like we're ritually sacrificing to Odin. It could be, they're not necessarily the same thing. They can be different things and still exist. And so, but I don't know. All I'm saying is, when you have the guards in a prison and and I've said this on repeat, like, if you've never been in a prison, if you don't know how it operates, if you don't understand that in cases like this, that guards and plants in the cell where they'll put in either an undercover or somebody that CI in a cell to try to get the person that they have on trial or going to have on trial to talk, you're nuts. Because it happens all the time. All the time. It's like, it's a huge move by them. Like, it just is. Just believe me. And they don't have to have any kind of conspiracy or connection. It's just something that is done. And especially when it's going to involve, the killing of children. Like, no one is a fan of that, especially in prisons, not the guards, not the inmates. And, they want somebody going down for it. All right, let's keep going. I'm off the soapbox. Sorry about that. Okay. Okay, we were here. In Odin we trust. Okay, so he has no ties. Lebrdo, who was Alan's. Okay, so we got Randy Jones was one of the ones wearing an Odin we trust patches on his Department of Correction uniform. So Lebrdo, he was ordered to take that off. He then had a tattoo put on his face, and it's Odin, and it's an Odin spear, and he was in charge of watching Mr. Allen while at Westville. I mean, come on, dude. When I asked him whether Richard Allen would get a fair trial, he responded, "It's going to be hard." Quote, "You asked me last night if I thought my client committed the crime, and I do not, but that doesn't matter," he said. Lebrdo said he didn't follow the Delphi double murder cases before being assigned to it last year. "I deal with nothing but murder cases. I was just in the Supreme Court yesterday arguing a quadruple homicide I did here in Allen County that involved a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 5-year-old child and their mother. And that got no publicity outside of Fort Wayne and Indianapolis." I actually tried to look that up. I didn't see anything. I'm not doubting him. Like, this is clearly at the Supreme Court level, so it's past the appellate point. So this is obviously an older case. The death penalty qualified Lebrdo describes Allen as calm, soft-spoken, and, quote, totally respectful. Lebrdo says that he's always shown gratitude for those working on his defense. His wife, quote, "Kathy stands by him," end quote, Lebrdo said as he questioned the timing of Allen's 2022 arrest. See, I mean, like, he's picking up what Baldwin and Rosie were putting down. I mean, he, like, this next quote that I'm about to read, like, kind of gets to the heart of it in terms of why Allen was the one arrested, and he says, quote, "There's something to the fact that he's arrested living in that small town that whole time, 24 days before the new sheriff's election. That just bothers me somehow, Lebrdo says. I mean, it's not just coincidence. The guy's not wrong. Baldwin and Rosie weren't wrong. It's a small town. It's politics. An arrest on a case that is the biggest that your town has ever seen. You know, I mean, not forgetting about the floor of four, but like Abby and Libby is the biggest case that county has ever seen, that town has ever seen. It's a thing. You make an arrest on it, it's probably going to propel you to a victory in an election. Just saying. Lebrdo agrees with Rosie and Baldwin that the investigation into the 2017 double murders was flawed, and says his team had prepared their own petition for a Franks hearing, alleging there were problems with the information used to obtain the search warrant for Allen's home. Ours was similar to theirs, but not the same. There were some differences, he says. I'd love to read that. I'd love to read it. I think Lebrdo or Scremin should send it to me. I'll put it on. I'll do it on a live, boys. I'd love to read it. I bet you it's not 136 pages long. I'll bet you that. I'll bet you it's probably 6 to 8 pages, like your typical Franks hearing motion. Love to read it. So if you're watching, send it to me. I would love to read it. I'd love to have you on. We could talk. Because I'd like to ask you whether or not I'm way off base about this thing, you know, you being in Gull's courtroom. Like, to me, it's just, I'm sure you can see from my perspective how it might give me pause, right? Ours was similar to theirs, but not the same. There were some differences, he says. Lebrdo says he's handled 75 to 100 murder cases and taken 35 to 50 of them to trial, including several death penalty cases. But in his 25th year of his career, he's never seen a pretrial defendant treated as harshly as Richard Allen. His hands were handcuffed to some box connected to his chest. I mean, it looked so horribly uncomfortable. I couldn't shake his hand. I couldn't have him sign anything. They refused to unshackle him for our safety. He's 120 pounds. Lebrdo says he's confident Allen is in capable hands with Rosie and Baldwin back on the case. And so they are both good attorneys. But would I've liked to stay on the case? Of course he would have. I mean, I've been saying this is a kingmaker case, and I ain't sweating them. Like I would want to stay on the case too. This isn't like it's a case that can make your career, especially if you have a guy that you believe is actually innocent and you're able to, yes, prove that he's actually innocent at trial. You're done. Like, you could probably either hang up the lawyering shoes and your suit and just become, you know, an author, talking head on TV, whatever the case may be. I mean, it's a kingmaker type case. I've been saying that all along. I mean, to me, that was one of the conflicts between Scremin and Lebrdo and Baldwin and Rosie. You know, I know that there wasn't communication between the two of them, like those two parties. And I don't necessarily blame Scremin and Lebrdo, because they wanted to keep the case, because it's a kingmaker case. Like, they're not wanting to give up this case that they just had handed to them. I mean, like, and I'm not sweating them on that. You know, I mean, was it in the best interest of Rick Allen during the time? No, probably not. But the fact of the matter is that if I were Scremin and Lebrdo, I wouldn't have been doing much work anyway. It sounds like they did quite a bit of work, like kind of in a state of flux, not knowing whether or not they were going to stay on as counsel. So the fact that they were doing the work and putting the work in is a credit to them, you know? So I'm not necessarily sweating them that they weren't in communication with Baldwin and Rosie, not to the extent that maybe they should have been. But, you know, they were still doing the work. They got the discovery. They were obviously plowing in, and, you know, they got some stuff drafted. I mean, we saw one of the things that they drafted, and we obviously were hearing about their version of a Franks memo. So he says, but yeah, I would have liked to stay on the case. It's a fascinating case. And it's rare that you have such a high profile case where you honestly think that you have an innocent client. Now, maybe I'm crazy thinking that. I don't know, but that's my opinion, he said. Like, why you got to back off of it? Why you got to back off of it? I don't think you're crazy for thinking it. You've seen the discovery. Like, you're at a much greater advantage than I am. And I've just been, I have to harp on the fact that I think that the PCA is very weak. And based on what was in the memo in terms of what they don't have, which is any kind of, evidence on the electronics of Allen, linking him to the girls in any way, shape, or form, or to Odinism. Like, those are huge things. So, like, when I'm looking at the strength of the case, I lean innocent because I think it's a weak PCA. You're sitting in a position where you've now seen, I'm talking to you, William, Bill, that you've seen the discovery. I mean, if you feel that he's actually innocent, say it and stand by it. Because if you feel that he's actually innocent and you see what's going on with this case, we need everybody on the side of the Constitution, which is defense lawyers, girding up and building this thing up so that there's a wall against the state and the power of the state from causing this wall to collapse, thereby crushing Richard Allen under it. Because that's what's going on. It's still going on. After your removal, they're still doing it. Like the filing by McClellan, I don't know what the impetus of it was, other than I think he wanted to get something on file based on what the Supreme Court was saying, that there was no hearing. So he says, okay, well, I'm going to prepare this. I mean, at this point, it's water under the bridge. I mean, we're rehashing what's already been hashed out. So, like, in terms of what his motive is behind it, I don't know. To me, it just appeared to be a move to get his version of the facts out to the public, to continue to cast shade on Allen's current attorneys, which continues to cast shade on Richard Allen in terms of his trial moving forward. I mean, that it stinks of that kind of move for me. Am I saying that I don't think that Baldwin and Rosie couldn't get some sanctions? Yeah, I think they could. I mean, it was sloppy with the leak stuff. I mean, Andy, there's no part of me that thinks that Andy intentionally sent Woodhouse that shit on purpose. Like that was definitely by mistake. I've done it myself where I had auto-populated emails go out and I'm trying to, I'm panicking, like, oh my God, I got to get it back. I realize it right away. And I'm trying to get it back. So, at that point, then when the leak happens, when whatever happens, and like, I don't want to get in that rabbit hole. I was sucked into that this morning with a group of my friends that, are just trying to figure out what is or what was Westerman's motive to do this. Because it can only be two things. It can only be, I'm getting these photographs in order to put them out, in order to show that what they wrote in the memo has merit. And I want the world to see that. Or I'm putting them out because this is going to cause a whole bunch of shit for their counsel and is probably going to result them not being his counsel anymore. It can only be one of two things. It can only be, and as Allison and I have said a million times, like ad nauseum, you're probably sick of hearing us say it, defense attorneys don't want crime scene photos of two young girls that have been murdered out in the public pre-trial. It makes no sense. And there's no way that you're getting crime scene photos that would substantiate the rune theory without having the girls be in those photographs. It makes zero sense that the defense would have done that or wanted it done, which leaves me to what I'm always saying. Who benefited the most from the leak? All I know is Nick McClelland and Judge Gull could not have been happy when they heard that Baldwin and Rosie were ready to go to trial on January 8th. Couldn't have been happy. Maybe even a bit mortified that they were ready, especially McClelland. He didn't get Luttrell until October. Like, Nick was flying solo on a massive case. Like, I am not sweating that dude because it like, if you have never tried a case of this magnitude or you're not an attorney, you have no clue how much preparation has to go into a trial like this. And for one man to be doing it, There's no way he could have been ready. I mean, he would have answered ready and he would have gone to trial. I have zero doubt because he would have had zero choice to do it. And he would have put in his best effort. And it would have been a nightmare for him because he just didn't have the time and the manpower to get the thing to where it needed to be in order to try it that soon. I mean, we know that that was the defense's part of their strategy to catch him off guard, not on steady footing. I mean, they argued it as such. I mean, they let that, like, I mean, I always knew that. Like, you always use speedy demands as a source of leverage and also as a source to try to catch the prosecution not ready to go to trial. You know, it's a strategy, no question. All right, so it's unclear how Richard Allen was notified of the change to his defense team following the Supreme Court's ruling, but Lebrdo said it would be improper for him to visit Allen now. I did draft him a letter saying, this is what happened and I'm sorry, Lebrdo concluded. So, and this just gives you a little synopsis. We all know the synopsis of the case. All right. Sorry, I did a lot of ranting there. Not really ranting, just talking. So I want to watch a little of Julie and Barbara. This runs about 9 minutes. I want to stop it.
Want to get Richard Allen's defense attorneys held in contempt. These prosecutors say that Allen's newly reappointed attorneys, Brad Rosie and Andrew Baldwin, have violated the court's gag order and were grossly negligent for being at fault for crime scene photos being leaked to the public, which the state says has caused irreparable harm to the victims' families. In their motion, prosecutors allege the press release and the 2 occasions of leaked information show a trend by defense counsel of not being completely honest with the court, violating the court's gag order set in place to protect the integrity of the case and failing to comply with the protective order put in place to protect the discovery in this case. Well, now we're hearing from one of Richard Allen's former attorneys in a CourtTV exclusive interview. Public defender William Lebrdo stepped down as counsel earlier this month after the state Supreme Court decision, and he's therefore no longer bound by the gag order. CourtTV documentary producer Barbara McDonald was the only person that he spoke to, and she is on the couch with me this morning. A wonderful journalist you are, and really, I like to say you are our in-house expert on the Delphi cases. This is something you have researched, written about, done interviews on for many, many years. So this is really quite a feather in your cap that he's talking exclusively to you, Barbara. Tell us what was the most stunning thing to you that he shared, please.
I think how emphatic he is in his belief that Richard Allen is innocent, not just not guilty, but that he's innocent of these charges and not involved at all, according to Bill Lebrdo. That was a bit surprising to me, you know, and I pushed back on that a bit. Like, you know, you're a defense attorney, that's your job, right? To say that. And he said he has handled murder cases. He's handled probably 100 murder cases in his career. And he says he doesn't say that very often. And he's never felt as strongly about a client's innocence as he does in this case.
Wow, Barbara.
That's it.
I mean, that's a big thing, you know, and I kept telling you guys over and over and over that the way that Baldwin and Rosie were acting in terms of everything that they were doing, in terms of that massive document that they prepared, in terms of what they were doing litigation style, starting with the press release, which, love it or hate it, just like the memo, it was done before the gag. And frankly, it evened the playing field. Like, I don't feel like anything except for great joy that for once the defense gets to get their narrative out instead of it just the state steeping their theory in the minds of the public for 2 years. Guilty, 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 guilty. I mean, why does it have to be that way? Like, it's not equitable. So I had no problem at all with the press release where the defense gets their say. Now you got a couple of theories out there. Now you got the innocent theory and you got the guilty theory. Seems to even it, doesn't it? I mean, doesn't common sense dictate that evens the scales of justice? I think it does. All right, let's continue.
Something. It really does. And the fact that you pushed him too, and you were like, well, you're not just saying your client's not guilty. You actually really believe that he's not guilty. And he even used the word innocent with you. Not innocent steps beyond.
Yes, 100% innocent is what he said. We also talked about a lot of other things connected to the case, including the theory of Odinism that was floated by the original defense team. They've now been reinstated, but they said in some of their filings that they believe that white supremacist members of this Odinistic cult are responsible for the murders. And I asked him about that. Here's a little bit of what he had to say.
I thought it was hocus pocus. I honestly didn't. I never heard of it. And the more I got into it, that's a real thing. It is a real thing, and it's scary.
In what way?
Well, I believe they sacrificed a girl and killed another one. Some of the people that live in Delphi were very brazen about their Odinistic beliefs on their Facebook pages and other social media accounts, including the sergeant who was in charge of keeping Mr. Allen safe in Westville.
You described one of those officers that's mentioned in one of Rosie and Baldwin's filings, Sergeant Jones, who was wearing patches that said "In Odin We Trust" on his Department of Corrections uniform.
Yep.
The judge ordered the warden to make them stop. And then what did you notice?
That Mr. Jones had a tattooed under his right eye. From the best we can tell, it looks a lot like Odin's spear. And he had several tattoos on his forearms, including the interlocking triangles that are on his Facebook post. I got to give credit to Mr. Rosie and Mr. Baldwin, and they picked up on that. We saw him, and confinement officers at the Allen County Jail aren't even allowed to have facial hair, let alone facial tattoos.
Pretty strong statement, because there was a lot of pushback about people saying, oh, well, what about, them being able to promote whatever religion they believe in. And I kept trying to say, look, I've never been in any kind of facility, confinement facility, whether it be a prison or a county jail, where they have ever allowed anybody that was an employee to wear patches that were not state or government issued, ever. That concept that people thought that was normal or okay is absurd. So I'm really happy that he's coming out saying a lot of these things, because it was really easy for a lot of people out there to just slam the defense that this was all just some kind of smoke screen hoax. It's some PR stunt. Odin, it's like, that's what I want to talk about. I mean, are we now of the mindset that because a second set of attorneys handpicked by Gull are now on board? It appears to be completely with what Baldwin and Rosie were saying, that now it's credible. Why wasn't it credible before? That's what I'm asking you. If you're now one of those people like, well, now there's two other defense attorneys who are saying it, so now it's credible. Well, why wasn't it credible before? Because it was defense attorneys doing it? Because it wasn't a prosecutor? Because I'll tell you, they play dirty pool just as much, if not more, than defense attorneys, prosecutors do. When they need to get a conviction, they will go to any length necessary to get a conviction. Believe me when I tell you that. Let's see what else he has to say.
I was a little miffed that the warden allowed that, or he even knew what it was.
That was one of the things that surprised me too, is that it was the same guard, according to Bill Lebrdo, that had the patch, was told to stop wearing it, and then comes to work with the tattoo under his eye.
Oh, Barbara, as I'm watching that, and my jaw dropped. Something else that's interesting that you asked him about when he's telling you he believes in that legal theory, he wasn't the first attorney to put it forward. As you know, it was the first set of defense attorneys who are now back currently Richard Allen's defense attorneys. And as we know, attorneys don't always agree on a legal theory in a case. To me, that really says something, that there may be some substantive value in it.
Yeah, and he said that, their defense strategy would have been probably a little bit different than Rosie and Baldwin, but not too different. They were.
I mean, it can't be that different. He just said in this interview that what it appears to him to have happened is that one of the girls was sacrificed and the other one was M-worded. I mean, like, how different can it be? I mean, there could be some slight differences. Maybe they're not liking the 5 dudes that Baldwin and Rosie name. Maybe those aren't their guys. Maybe it's 3 of those guys. Who knows? But the concept appears to be, to me, that they were completely on board with it. Like, I don't understand. Like, we don't need to backtrack from what he's saying. I mean, what he's saying is very clear. Like, I don't know why anybody needs to try to like couch it in a certain way. What Lebrdo is saying to me is abundantly clear. I mean, of course, it's not going to be in complete lockstep. There's different minds involved. Different minds look at different things, and they write things differently. They word things differently. They will interpret things differently. But the concept clearly appears to be the same thing.
So preparing a Frank's memo for a Frank's hearing, alleging that there were, problems with the information that was used to obtain the search warrant for Richard Allen's home. So it sounds like they were following a similar path, if not, not identical, but a similar path for sure.
Close, right? With the Odinism theory being at the heart, that someone else carried this out, and that this brutal killing of those beautiful children was done by someone practicing.
Exactly. And that's what, I think when that first Odin memo dropped, we were all like, Odinism, what is that? Right. And I think for a lot of people, it was that there's no way that could be true. And this is somebody who looked into it, who at first said, no, I don't buy that either. But then after getting into the case, he had it for 79 days as lead counsel, and he says there's something there.
Wow. Barbara, I know that obviously as an attorney, any communications he had with Richard Allen, as you know, are privileged, but he can certainly describe, how he was doing in jail or what he saw. The appearance, I know, has been so stunning to so many people, the dramatic weight loss. Tell us what he shared with you about that.
He said that he is improving some mentally and physically, but that it is still very difficult for him. He dropped from 206 pounds at his arrest to about 122 pounds at his lowest. He says he's still probably in the 130 to 140 range, so definitely much lower than what he had been. He described him as calm, very soft-spoken, very engaged in his defense, and very kind and appreciative to the people working on his defense.
It sounds like even though there was so much disruption and we saw such a bitter legal battle playing out all the way up to the state Supreme Court, you were there, watching things. Even though that all happened, it seems that there was so much civility among these lawyers who were appointed for a brief time and then have left. It seems like there's no animosity, is there, between them and the original attorneys?
Yeah, he had high praise. He said if there's anything he can do to benefit them and their case, he's happy to take part in that. He feels that Richard Allen is in very capable hands, even though he would have liked to have stayed on the case. He said it's very rare that you get a high-profile case where you really believe your client is innocent. And that's where he was. But he says, he absolutely is willing to do whatever he can. I know that, legality-wise, it's a little dicey now at this point, but he wants to see Richard Allen get a fair trial. And he also believes that Judge Fran Gull is the secret to that fair trial. He thinks she's the right judge for this case.
And now she's been appointed is it the chief judge in her division, Barbara? Wow. So, which is a huge nod from her colleagues. I mean, that must say so much about her.
He said she's one of the most qualified judges he's ever worked with. He's been arguing before her for 2 decades or more, and says she's absolutely the judge who's going to ensure that Richard Allen gets a fair trial. which is what he says he wants.
Yes, and he certainly has that right, as you know. Barbara McDonald, I can't wait to see all of your interview. Thank you for the
closing
preview.
arguments.
Yes.
And then there's also going to be a story going up on CourtTV.com with some more information from my talks with him.
Beautiful. You've been doing a great job with the writings that you put up on our website and all the information you were sharing, Barbara. Thank you so much. And again, a big reminder, you can watch all of Barbara's exclusive interview with Richard Allen's former court-appointed attorney, William Lebrdo, tonight, 8 p.m. on Closing Arguments with our friend, Vinnie Politan.
All right, there you go. So fascinating stuff, really. Like I said, I'm not surprised by it because of what was in the safekeeping motion, but I am surprised that he's talking. You know, I mean, again, like the first thing I kind of text Barbara, I'm like, look, is this like, is he violating the gag here? But apparently he went and talked to Gull, and Gull gave him the all clear, which is interesting to me. I don't know what that means, you know, and I'm dying to hear this. Like, I'm like, you guys heard it, and it's a full hour. Like, this isn't like, you know, how Vinny will run 15, 20 minutes of one thing, jump to it. This is the full hour. Barbara's going to be on there. They're going to be running the interview. It'll be intermixed with Barbara talking with Vinny and them playing clips of the interview. It's bound to be fascinating. I mean, he seems to be laying it all out there. No holds barred. He certainly, you know, it's surprising to me. And I can't help but wonder, you know, what he ends up saying. And I don't know where I thought I saw a clip of him saying, or maybe it was just me hearing Barbara saying that, you know, that Gull is the best choice, that the only chance that he has at a fair trial is if Gull is proceeding, if she's the presiding judge on it. You know, I don't, which is such a strange thing, isn't it? Isn't it weird? I mean, because he's definitely looking at the same things that we are. I mean, he was a part of it. He was in the middle of it. He had to think that there was some things that were way off about how the case was being handled by Judge Gull, or maybe not. Or maybe she says, yeah, you know what, you go do what you're going to do. But, you know, you need to say that I'm the one that should be on this case. I have no idea if that happened, but it sure seems like it. I mean, I can't think of another explanation, because, I mean, even people that are adamant on the other side of this, that think that Baldwin and Rosie should have been sent to the moon, and that, like, Allen is guilty unequivocally, like, those people are even like, man, at this point, like, we just need to get a fair trial going here. And I don't know that Gull's going to be able to make it happen. I mean, even those folks have come to that conclusion, you know, probably not as vehemently as the people on the other side of it, but they've come at least to the middle, you know. And it's one of those things where, you know, I hope that him saying that during the interview is not going to cause people to think that what he's saying about everything else isn't truthful. I hope that that's not the case. Like, I would hate for that statement to knock into his credibility with respect to everything he's saying about the defense in terms of the evidence that he's seen, you know, because, again, at this point, he's got no stake in the race, you know. I mean, clearly he wanted to get a little juice out of this. And again, I ain't sweating him, you know. I mean, I got no problem with it. You know, I did Datelines in 2020s after Garcia. You know, I mean, it was a case that was fascinating and frustrating and terrifying in a lot of different ways. And it deserved to be talked about, you know. And I mean, and he's got firsthand experience in this. And apparently he got the clearance from Gull to talk about it, which is befuddling to me. You know, I mean, he's echoing everything that was said in the memo that Gull either hated or didn't hate. I don't know what, you know, she didn't read it or she read it. I don't know. You know, I don't know. You know, so it's interesting. All right, let's see what y'all got going on here. All right. Shiraz, the membership. Thank you so much. You always come through. Elizabeth, new member, welcome. Dame Paul, Rosie and Baldwin should spend some time with Lebrdo on how to talk and how to submit things to go. There is a major difference between them. There is a reason she picked him. They need to change how they use their words. Could be. Now, I had heard that Scremin was the guy drafting the motions, like he was the motion guy. So, but what does stand true is the fact that Lebrdo's been in front of Gull for a long, long time. I mean, that's what I was saying in the beginning. They know each other, which scares me more than anything else. Like I don't take the great comfort that you might be taking in that. I find it to be a little bit scary because a lot of times, like I said, if you're in front of a judge that you do not appear in front of a lot, I mean, essentially what you're talking about that you can do is scorched earth where, you don't have to worry about upsetting a judge to where they're going to hate you. Especially if you've got many cases in front of her with other clients. I mean, you cannot be putting your other clients at risk for adverse rulings based on the fact that you got a judge that's playing on tilt because she hates your guts. So it's like, to me, it's not a great look. Like I always, in big cases, I always like seeing attorneys from out of county or even out of state coming in to handle them because they don't have those relationships that are crafted and developed over years with judges in certain courthouses, because those are just facts. You make the same relationships with prosecutors when you work with them over years. They come to realize that, look, if the Matas say they're going to go to trial on this thing, they're not full of shit. There's a case there. They know, like, if we're not seeking a plea agreement, that we think that there's a viable case there, which had to come with experience of trying cases against us. You know what I mean? That isn't something that people are going to intuit. They have to learn it, and you have to earn that type of respect in courtrooms and courthouses from the judges and the prosecutors. And once that happens, it's a relationship that has to be, cared for. Otherwise, whatever advantages that you may be able to get from that in terms of being able to get maybe a little bit better deal from the state, if they're like, all right, well, this guy's got some legitimate issues that he's coming to us with, like, let's take a harder look at it. It's like that only comes with that type of experience. So I hear what you're saying, Dane. I do. I don't know if I'm 100% in agreement with it, but I hear what you're saying. As far as the memo, I'm assuming that you're talking about the memo. And this is what I think this comment is about. Bob, you know how to do what I'm saying. Less words and more to the point. Let them read your dad's stuff. There is no finesse in their work. I mean, they came hard. The memo was obviously a damn near a novel. It was a big pleading. So I hear you, man. I hear you on that one. Nick was buying her graces, buying favor. I'm assuming Dane and Dane with a total of a $27 holla. I appreciate you, brother. Thanks so much for that. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it seemed like he was having her back a bit, and I'm assuming that Dane is talking about his most recent filing for the contempt motion that he's trying to curry favor, or just show Gull that, hey, I got your back, gal. I'm here for you. So thank you, man. Thank you for your comments, and thank you for your generosity as well. I appreciate it. Charmaine gifting 5 out to the peoples. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Debbie with the $5 holla. Appreciate you. Always. I see the same usual suspects are always incredibly generous, and I just adore you all for that. I don't know if my mods, Mandy, you're in here. I don't know if you saw any good questions or comments we should throw up. I like to handle the people that are members and obviously are donating. And Shiraz coming through. Look at this. She came in first with 1, and then she just couldn't help herself from being incredibly generous, and then gifted 10 memberships. So we got 10 new members thanks to Shiraz. I'm sure you all thanked her for her incredible generosity, and I too am thanking you for your incredible generosity. All right, let me take a whip through here. We don't want to stay on too long. I expect everybody to watch Barbara's interview tonight. I'm going to be cute. Like, there's going to be a quiz. Like, mark it down. It's going to be a quiz. All right, let me go through here. Yeah, I'd love to have him on as a guest. You know that. Like, I'm a defense guy, man. You know, like, and I'll ask him questions which he may not. I don't know how much clearance he got from Gull, because theoretically, even if they're not on the case anymore, they're technically under the gag still. Oh, thanks, Mandy. Mandy's one of my wonderful mods, and it's Mandy who I was talking about, who made that top-notch thumbnail that y'all should be enjoying. I don't know about y'all. I had like one person come at me about the thumbnail saying, "Oh, you know, like it seems like you're making light," and I'm like, not really. You know, not with these two. I think it was the tug of war. Like, we did the tug of war one in front of the Supreme Court with Gull, and then Baldwin and Rosie on the other side. I think our thumbnails are some of the best in the game, if not the best in the game. So, and that's all Mandy and Stevie. So, it's just my feeling on it. All right, let's see. What do we got? Anything? We got a lot of hellos. We got a lot of. All right, let me see. Oh, let's see. There's a couple more starred in here. Let's see. All right, Carol, Defense Diaries podcast. Bob, should Gull be making Facebook posts about her relative winning prizes and being presented by Becky Patty at an Abby and Libby softball field with an award? She said, "Congratulations." I mean, no. I think we discussed this the other night, Carol, and like I told a story of a time that I was in a local haunt around here, restaurant bar, and I saw a judge that I knew, and she had just gotten on the bench, and I was excited for her, and I had offered to just buy her a drink. I wasn't even gonna go sit with her. I was like across the bar. I was like, "Your Honor, can I buy you a drink?" She's like, "I better not. Like, as much as I'd love to accept it, I better not. You know, we can't have anything that even sniffs impropriety." And I said, "Heard, got you. I feel you, you know." And I said, "Well, congratulations anyway." So, I mean, things like that, the fact that we're mentioning it, the fact that it's a thing tells us the answer, right? The fact that somebody was digging in her Facebook, finds this little connection, as remote as it may be with Abby and Libby, it doesn't look good. So the answer is no. She should not be making posts, especially at a tournament that is in honor of both Abby and Libby, not the judge that's sitting on the case. Everybody else, yes, should be donating to that because it's a wonderful cause, but the judge should just steer clear of it, not comment, not donate. There's plenty of other folks out there that are happy to donate, and I'm sure did. All right, Megan Z. Hey, at Four Pits, you think BM has changed how she feels about the family narrative? I kind of felt like she wasn't happy about this development. What am I missing? So are you talking about not Bob Mata, but Barbara McDonald? So I didn't see the preceding comments between Four Pits. I'm assuming that it was a discussion relating to the fact that Barbara did this interview and maybe went in thinking, all right, well, this guy is about to flamethrow Baldwin and Rosie, tell them that, like, she couldn't have thought that. Like Barbara knew that they had filed that motion, you know, the safekeeping motion. And Don Burke gifted 10 Defense Diaries podcast memberships. Thank you, Don Burke. You're a wonderful human being. Wonderful. you know, I don't know what. Look, I've had conversations with Barbara off record, us just waiting in line together, us talking. Like, she is not 100% on Richard Allen's guilt. Like, I don't know if I'm letting the cat out of the bag like that, but I mean, like, she's, you know, like she's got thoughts. Like, I don't think that Barbara is in any camp. Like, I don't think that she's in the, like, oh, he's guilty, 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 or that he's innocent, innocent, innocent. I think she's smart enough to know that when she looks at it objectively, there's questions there. And like all of us, we got to wait to trial. You know, just because I'm in the leaning innocent camp, I've said it a million times. That doesn't mean that if they have evidence that I'm not aware of, which is maybe even probable, not even likely, but probable, that connects Allen to the crimes, then I'm wrong. And I'm going to be thrilled that they got the right individual and that the family's got justice. Like, I don't know how many times I have to say that. Just because, based on what I've seen, based on my experience, I am concerned. And the thing that concerns me the most, like if I'm to break it down to y'all in a way that you can understand, like kind of way, like how my mind works. And I may have said it in a live the other night, but like the fact of the matter is law enforcement goes all in on Rick Allen. Okay. And they get the family to go all in on Rick Allen by way of saying, look, we're confident this is the guy. Trust us. We're telling you this is the guy. Trust us. And they do. You know, I mean, that's what families do. They trust in law enforcement. Because the fact of the matter, and I said it at the beginning, most of the time law enforcement gets it right. They just do. Like, that's a fact. Like, no one can dispute that. A vast majority of the time, law enforcement gets the right guy because of good police work and stupid criminals. Like, those two things combined typically allow for law enforcement to get the right guy. And like I've said a million times, most things don't go to trial. Like, if something is going to trial, you have to know that but for any kind of like just an obstinate defendant who's refusing to plead out, who's absolutely going to get just crushed at trial because they have all the evidence they need and just refuses to plead, you know, but for those circumstances, if it's going to trial, there are issues with the evidence. There's issues with the facts to the point where it needs to go to trial to have a jury or the judge, if you're going to do a bench, decide what's what, you know? So, all right. Oh, am I boring you? $10 holla. Thank you so much. You were incredibly jealous. And am I boring you? One of the most creative, one of the most fun to say handles that I've seen on YouTube, by the way. I'm going to have to ask you to subscribe to Publicly Buzzed. Oh, am I boring you? If you're not already. And I need you to do like a super sticker so that Steve will try to read your name, because it'll be the most fun that we've had all year. Steve reading handles on Publicly Buzzed is one of my favorite pastimes because it's adorable. It's funny. It's everything. It's all the good things is Steve trying to read handles on YouTube. It's the best. So any chance that you will follow the Shane Meehan trial, the guy who shot Ferenczi? Ooh, it's supposed to be February 14th. I will certainly be peeking in on that. Like, you know, obviously my conspiracy part of my brain immediately went to like, okay, who shot Ferenczi and why? You know, does it have some connection to this? I mean, that's where my brain went. So yeah, thank you for, I was not aware that was coming up the 14th. So yes, thank you. Oh, am I boring you? I will definitely look into that for sure. Like I'm pretty certain it's not going to be televised. They don't seem to televise much in Idaho, but Jesus, the other day I was calling Idaho, Indiana. Now I'm calling Indiana, Idaho. It's like those two cases, man. And I haven't like been on the Like I've been so into the Delphi case that I haven't even taken a peek at Idaho 4 really up until the other day when I was streaming a little bit of that hearing with Nerdy. So Alan's phone didn't have any location data for the day. Was he sporting a flip phone? I don't think so. I mean, he said he was looking at his stock ticker on, on his phone. Like, I don't think he could do that on a flip phone. So, that's what I'm trying to say. Like, they're going to have the geofencing. They're going to have the location data. I mean, it seems to me that there's no way they're not going to know when he got to the bridge and when he left from the geo data from the phone. I mean, yeah, yes, it's going to share. Like, I know there's not many towers there. Towers are always the issue. Coverage is always the issue. But in terms of just the metrics and the metadata that you can pull off the phones, it's like, we're not talking this is 2017. It's not like there was some decent tech back then as well. I don't know. It's clearly not what it is now, but it's decent. So, yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Again, when they make a blanket statement and then Lebrdo followed it up that they didn't find anything on his phones connecting him to the girls, I would have to include the fact that nothing on his phone had him geolocated to the girls at the time that they were on the bridge. Because that to me would be finding something on his phone, right? I mean, it just doesn't have to be text message or, did he draw him onto the bridge? I mean, it would be the fact that they can put him there at the time that the girls were at the bridge. I mean, that would certainly be finding something on his phone. So I don't know. We'll have to wait until trial. Holy smokes. Charmaine with the $28 holler. I didn't even know you can make a $28 holler. Thank you so much for your generosity. That is insanely jealous. Thank you. Or not jealous, incredibly courteous and incredibly generous is what I meant to say, not jealous. Freudian slip, maybe? I don't know. Kind of a mouthful, but people say all the time that the D is lying and no RA is guilty. I know I don't know what the MKT, maybe somebody can help me. I know that's make it the case, but the defense lawyers knowingly lie in court. Say it loud enough for the lurkers, please. No, they can't. They can't just come in with frivolous lies and pleadings. It's that's a one-way ticket to getting your license suspended or disbarred. There's rules. You just can't come in with frivolous lies. I mean, Gull called out Baldwin and Rosie because she didn't think that there was any chance that the warden was lying about the conditions at Westville. After they said, look, we couldn't go back because they wouldn't bring us back to inspect the cell. So we're having to go by dimensions and what Rick is telling us. That doesn't make them liars. For her to not understand or be savvy enough to know that there's no way in hell that the warden of a prison is going to get on the stand and admit that they're torturing the inmates at his prison. Come on, dude. So yeah, no, I'm with you, Charmaine. I don't know if you're late to the game, but I was yelling that from the rafters already. All right. I think we'll wrap. Hour 15 was actually longer than I wanted to be on here anyway. And I'm still fighting this head cold. It just won't go away. So thank you everybody for joining me on such short notice. Everyone make sure that you're going to CourtTV tonight. It's going to be an amazing hour. No matter which way you slice it, it's going to create dialogue. That I can guarantee. We're all going to want to talk about it. I'm going to be hard pressed not to be jumping back on another live after it to be discussing it. Maybe I can get Barbara on We'll see. After she watched how some of y'all were treating Susan, she might not be willing to come. That's why I was saying, like, you gotta, like, you can disagree with people. Just keep it civil. You don't need to name call people. Like, that's not how I operate here. I'm not an echo chamber. I don't need all pro defense, pro innocence. Like, I don't need all that. I like everybody in here. I like the people that give me static. I love the people that give me pushback, as long as they keep it civil. That's like what I did for a living for 20 years, was argue the other side. I love it. Love it. And you guys should too. And you should just keep it civil. And when I have a guest on, I expect you all to be courteous to them and treat them with respect. Because if it gets out there, as this show grows and grows and grows, that people that are on the opposite side of me, if I have a view on a certain subject or case, that they're going to be afraid to come on because they're going to get devoured by the wolves. I don't want that. Please don't do that. Just be kind. You can state your opinion and state it clearly, concisely, and civilly. And then we're good to go. Like, because people were like, oh man, your mods were pulling comments. Well, if you're insulting the guest that's taking their time out, who may have a different opinion than you, or may have a reason why they're not able to speak freely, whether you agree with that reason or not, it exists in the world. Just show them some common courtesy. Give them some grace. Hear what they have to say. And if you disagree, boom, you disagree. I certainly disagreed with a lot that Susan was saying. I wasn't name calling her. Allison certainly was disagreeing with a lot that Susan was saying, but we also knew, and she said it flat out in the very beginning of that thing. Look, I have a relationship with the families. The families are going to be watching. She has to be cognizant of that. She has to be careful in terms of what she says and does, because she doesn't want to hurt the families. I respect that. I really do. You know, I mean, my whole thing was like, I wanted her to come on and be as candid as she could. And I think that she was as candid as she could be, or felt that she could be, without doing damage to the families and putting them in some kind of peril, emotionally or mentally. I got no problem with it, you know? So whatever, ending the rant on that one. But thank you all for being here so much. You guys know I love you. Please, I'm like super close to 12,000 subs. Like, I think like 130. Please sub. If you like the content, you'll get the notifications. We put some pretty good content out there. Joe, you came at the end, my brother. Man, Joe Jackalone, another one of my homies, an amazing channel over at Joe's. He's the Sarge. I mean, you need that cop side guy who's been doing it forever. That's Donnie. Oh, the bows are starting to flow in now. Donnie. Is that our Donnie, Mandy? Is that our Donnie? Donnie, good looking out, kid. Welcome to the party. Oh, Laura came in with a holla. $5 holla from Laura Smart. Really appreciate you. All you and Allie are doing recently. When is the next Avery pod? When Allison's done working on the PCRA, that's when the next, I owe everybody a Garcia, which I'm working on currently, and the Avery. So the Averys, when we record the Averys, we do 3 or 4 episodes at a time. So when you get the next Avery, you're going to be assured that there's going to be a bunch of them coming, like, in quick succession. Oh, thank you, Missy Mayhem. That is our Donnie. What's up, Donnie? Welcome. I don't know if Donnie's been over here. I don't know what he's been waiting for. Come on, Donnie. Welcome, brother. We're glad you're here. All right. So everybody, make sure you're sharing, subscribing. And if you're so inclined, become a member. We're going to have lots of neat stuff for our members. I think our members get the super dope emojis. I had no idea, because on StreamYard, I cannot see the emojis when you guys use them. It just shows me like colon and what the emoji is. I had no idea that we had so many awesome emojis. I was like, I text Mandy and Stevie today. I'm like, yeah, I think we need to up the emoji game. I'm looking and she's like, what are you talking about, man? Have you do you know how many emojis we have? So she starts sending me screenshots. I'm like, all right, yeah, I was completely wrong. So there's a lot of cool reasons we're gonna be, and as we keep growing, we're gonna keep coming up with a lot more benefits for our members. So We want to make it worthwhile for y'all, and just know that we adore you. And for the rest of you, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. It's not that hard. You can always unsubscribe if one day I say something that is just so repugnant to you that you've decided that you can't listen to my mouth anymore. You unsubscribe. But in the meantime, just remember, Allison always offsets me with the brains and the beauty. So, like, there's me, and then there's Allie. Oh, and then me, you know? It's a good partnership. All right, y'all. Thanks for hanging for a long time. I love you. Because without you, as you know, I would just be an old man talking about new and old cases. Talk at you next time.
Heart